And hello and welcome to Where Living is a Vacation, a special edition. We're going to call this the Antique LO Show is what we're going to be calling this special episode. We've brought in some artifacts from Lake Orion's history, and it's always fascinating to see. And I am joined by Sharon Konieczny of the Orion Historical Society and Jimmy Johnson. And thanks for coming out and helping us fill up some time here today.
Yeah, thank you for having us back out.
So it's got to be challenging to find artifacts. You have to have people willing to donate those things that are found in the attics and basements of Lake Orion residents. What are some of the more interesting things have you seen in your history with the Historical Society?
Well, we brought a bunch of the cool things.
Yeah.
But like with estate sales, like we go to different estate sales and you can find anything from like those little red ruby glasses, if you can, those souvenirs used to give out at Park Island and the amusements. If you ever see one of those are rare to have find a Park Island one. But you see commemorative plates, you see yearbooks, you see so much stuff. So every time when we go to estate sales, we're like, is that Orion? Is that Orion? Many other cities, though, it's hard to find. It's hard to find artifacts out there. And luckily, with the Orion Historical Society, with us being out there, we get a lot of people that say, like, hey, I have this thing. Do you want this?
That's great.
So,
Yeah.
And we've had a number of people come up to us, like at the flower fair or something, going, you know, this was my mother's, and they don't want to throw it away, but they don't want to drag it around with them forever. So we've had some pretty cool things, some high school graduation, like diplomas. People reach out to us every so often, and we'll put in a plug if anybody wants to reach out. We have, our storage space is limited, but if you've got some small items that you'd like to donate and know it'll be given to a good home, we'd be keeping them and hopefully displaying them at some point. So
I know one person who's become sort of a curator of Lake Orion artifacts. Used to be, her name was Reva Campbell, now it's Reva Beatty. I think she's gotten married. But she does a historic boat tour on the lake, and she brings photos and artifacts with her. And one of the more interesting ones that I've seen is she has an old wool bathing suit that women were obligated to wear when they would stay at Bellevue Island at the hotel there. And so imagine going swimming in a heavy wool bathing suit, but she has one of the originals that somebody wore on Bellevue Island. And I've seen some other cool artifacts recently, like we got a tour of the Lake Orion Lumberyard, and as we toured the lumberyard, we stumbled onto some really fascinating artifacts. Like there's a colorful, it looked like a Van Gogh work of art, and it was made of pieces of painted wood. And apparently the mother of the family that owned the Lake Orion Lumberyard had made that, and that hung on one of the barns for the longest time. And so they saved that. They're going to preserve that. We also stumbled onto a large, like 8-foot by 4-foot panel that had a painting of Paul Bunyan on it. And so they're trying to save these artifacts, and hopefully when they develop the Lake Orion Lumberyard into the community space that they have envisioned for it, those will be on display for people to see.
Yeah, incorporating that into the history would be great. So just subtle notes of like, yes, this was here before, and it's still on the same property, which is awesome too.
So what are some of the things you brought with you today?
Yeah, so I mean, out of the numerous things that we do have, it was hard to like narrow down what we have, but we do have a few things we brought today. Our first thing is this board right here in front of me. So this is a 1936 Lake Orion High School. And we're thinking we thought it was maybe like the senior class, but it could be the student council because some of the names that are on here, the titles, we have vice president, we have president, treasurer, and some of the names that are on here are also historic. So there's a Hadrill, and there's a Waite last name on here as well. But after researching this board, I'm like, wow, was this what they did before yearbooks? Like, did they carry this around? We're like, hey, will you sign my board? So doing some research on this company, this is the Camp Publishing Company out of Ypsilanti, and I have a photo of one of their ads here, if you could show it on the screen. This is an old ad from, let's see, it's early 1900s. So on this ad for Camp Publishing, they have, they did everything from class rings to pins, trophies, kind of like what high schools do now, all of that paraphernalia that goes with being that graduating class.
Yeah.
And so they sent fleets of these vehicles. So these are Hudson terraplanes, and they had trailers, and they used to travel lower Michigan, upper Indiana, and Ohio, taking photos all of these high schools.
Wow.
So yeah, all this from this Camp Publishing company out of Ypsi. But yeah, it was interesting to read about that. So I'm like, oh, okay. So I was wondering, like, was there a yearbook? But yeah, these photographs were common. There's a lot of these on the internet from all these schools. But like
we were talking earlier that
Yeah.
when we see these class photos and stuff from the 20s, 30s, or whatever, they all look so much older than what
Yes.
we thought we looked like in high school. They look like they're in
Yes.
their 20s and 30s in
Yeah.
these photos, but I'm sure these are 16, 17, 18-year-old kids. It's so wild.
yeah, that's why it was hard to decipher. I'm like, are we going to go student council, or are we going to go, these are the people that worked at the school? So, but yeah, this is, so this is 1936. But this, I wanted to show you this one school that I have a picture of. This was before the Ammon Center, before that high school that's sitting there now. This was
Yeah.
the building that was sitting there on that property. And it was later, so this 4-story Lake Orion school, it was built in 1893, corner of Elizabeth and Lapeer Street of where we know now, grades 1 through 12, and had 139 total students in
It looks
1895.
like something out of a movie, doesn't it? It's
And
hard to believe.
I love that. I love the look of that building. So it was later, it was demolished. So the next photo, it was later demolished and replaced with the school that we see now. But part of the program with Franklin Roosevelt's Works Progress program. So they demolished it, built this new one, 1927. So this class, 1936, was out of this building
That's
here.
cool. Okay.
So yeah.
I just recently got a tour of the current Elizabeth Street School, and it still has the ghosts roaming the halls. It's very eerie to go in there. And for those of you who might not know, they're going to be turning that building into residential units that people can go into, like loft apartments and stuff. So they want to retain the look, so they're not going to modernize it. It's still going to look like the Elizabeth Street School, but people will be able to live and play in the Elizabeth Street School. It's really exciting.
Yeah, it would be great if they did some replicas of these on the walls.
Yeah, they would.
Seen some yearbooks from 1930s, early 1900s.
Yeah, I think they should like make that building available to film production. You know, let people come in and use that space. Even though I would imagine most of it's going to be residential looking, but currently there's chalkboards and even one classroom has desks and stuff in it. So it would be really cool to have people film movies at this location.
Oh yeah, before they start working on it. Yeah, that would be great. The next thing that we have was donated to the Orion Historical Society. We have Blanche Sims' grade book. Yes, the famous Blanche Sims grade book. That 1896, 1897. It's right here in front of our table. So this delicate piece, I know I should be handling this with white gloves of some sort.
Yeah, right.
But in here was something. It was a grade book that was donated to the Historical Society. And right here it has October 1896 to March 12, 1897. And it has Blanche Sims, teacher, and it has the different subjects, people's names, so with her writing on there. So
that's Blanche Sims' handwriting.
Blanche Sims' handwriting in this fragile book.
That's incredible. And
Yeah.
we did a cemetery tour a number of years ago, and Blanche Sims is buried at the Evergreen Cemetery on Lapeer Road. And I did a little research, and I believe You know where the Spresser Ogden building is in downtown Lake Orion? It's a beautiful
Yes.
home with the wraparound porch. Directly across the street from that is this blue home. And based on my research, I think I discovered that Blanche Sims lived in that house while she was a teacher in Lake Orion schools. And now, of course, we have Blanche Sims Elementary School, which is named after her. And I'm sure they have some artifacts. I think they have her bell that she would ring by hand and that sort of thing. So, so Blanche Sims is about as close as to a celebrity as you can get here in Lake Orion.
Yeah, and like one of the pictures we have here, here's a class pic. There's Blanche Sims in the middle. This is like from 1950.
Wow.
And so she graduated high school in 1895, and she taught for 50 years.
Wow.
And obviously we have the elementary school named after her in 1950. But also, here's another pic of, this was when Sharon and I in the Orion Historical Society, we were approached, they wanted to honor her at Evergreen with from the DAR, the Daughters of the American Revolution you were referring to.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is
they
her
brought a
gravesite.
couple artifacts with them. And you remember this, when we were shooting video at the cemetery, we were approached by a guy named Dwayne Decker, I believe was his name. And he was curious as to what was going on, and we told him we were shooting video, and we said that we were going to specifically focus on Blanche Sims' gravesite, and he said, she was my teacher. And I was blown away by that. So he told us some stories about having Blanche Sims as his elementary school teacher. That was pretty
I
awesome.
remember that interview because he went in depth. He shared a
Yeah.
lot.
I'd
Getting
like to get him
teary-eyed.
here
He
in the
was-
studio. We need to hear those stories. Yeah.
Yes, very, very, very humble guy, and very open to sharing everything about what happened in like the daily life.
Yeah.
So yes.
Yeah, he told us how they would, the kids would turn on the water in the cemetery where there was a slope, and it would freeze, and they would go sledding and stuff in the cemetery on the hill there. So,
Yes.
yeah, I love hearing that stuff.
Yeah. Our next item that we have, so this is the East Flint Street sign. It's heavier than your normal size. But right here, this is your East Flint little rusty sign here. So this is from the 1950s, and I found this actually at a local antique show. It was just sitting there on the table, and I'm like, why does that look so familiar? I'm like, oh, wait a minute. I just remembered a picture that we just posted recently, and we're sharing with the Historical Society of this specific sign.
Yeah, so here's what's interesting. So when you told me you had found that sign, and then we looked at the intersection of where Hanson's is right now, used to be, what was the pharmacy there?
Oh yeah. Before that used to be.
I'm drawing a blank.
I'm drawing a blank. I'm put on the spot. I
But
keep saying Hanson.
there's a photo of that pharmacy, and you see a sign that says East Flint Street. And when you really scrutinize that photo, you quickly realize that this sign you're holding in your hand is the same sign that's in that historic
Van
photo.
Wagner's, yes.
Van Wagner's, that's
yes.
right, the family that goes way
Yep.
back here in Lake Orion.
So here's a picture here of, I took a photo of it at the antique show of like, when I didn't move it, I'm like, I told my son, take a picture of this. This is where we're getting this awesome sign from. This is from Lake Orion. And the next picture is a picture of the Van Wagner's, that corner. And you'll see that black little sign there. It says East Flint Street. And we zoomed right in, and we could see like where it was bent here in the corner.
And the rust spots.
And the
are all
rust
the
spots
same.
are there. So, but looking up like back in the 50s, like how they made these signs, I mean, they were made out of steel, porcelain enamel, and they were hand painted over the letters that bumped out. So that's how you get that look to it. So, but yeah, it was an awesome find. And
What a great find, yeah. It's amazing to think that I would imagine the local municipality went in there that changed out the street signs. Somebody had the presence of mind to save those, and somehow that ended up in the hands of a private collector and ended up at an antiques show. So that's amazing that survived just being scrapped.
what's in people's garages is probably think like, oh, put it to the side, put it aside. And it's like, yeah, this is a piece of history that you're just putting aside.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm glad we were able to save that. That's fantastic.
So
all right, what's the story behind this dangerous looking,
okay, so look at this. We have, it looks like a weapon. Could it be a weapon? But No. I mean, what are your thoughts? What do you think this could be used for, Joe?
Well, I mean, it looks like a pitchfork, but that's too small to throw hay.
Yep.
So is it a cooking utensil?
You are right.
Yeah.
It is. It's a fire pit fork.
Okay.
So this was donated to us when somebody from Canterbury did a history presentation at our historical society meeting, and she had a gift for us, and it was like, hey, surprise, we have found a fork on the property of Canterbury Village. And when they were doing all the excavating and building the Canterbury Village, they found this, and they believed to belong to the Hadrill family that had their farm there.
Wow.
And I was like, okay, well, researching a fire pit fork. Okay, what would you use something like this for? So typically these are made out of brass or iron, or cheaper ones are made out of just wire that's kind of wrapped. But these started appearing in the 1850s, these types, and which kind of lined up with like the Hadrill family's farm being there. So let's see, I have a picture of that farmhouse.
Blue house
that's
still stands on the grounds of Canterbury Village.
Yeah.
I think when it was the Scripps estate, like one of the managers of the property lived in that home.
Yep.
And now I think it's a salon, and they have stories of it being haunted and stuff like that.
Yeah,
So,
there's a picture right here of the Revival Salon that's in that blue house now.
yeah, there it is.
And in the back there, they have that open basement, which they're like, oh, is that place haunted? Because
The
it's
cellar,
it's
yeah.
got the cellar downstairs. But a little bit about James Hadrill, again, house located in Canterbury Village, was born in 1846 in Orion in a log house built by his father, Isaac Hadrill, who came over from England. So we were thinking this could have been used by the Hadrills because he was very fond of hunting. So he did a lot of hunting, fishing, killed bears, shot scores of deer, and this could have been used for whatever he hunted to like put on the fire pit to eat.
Yeah, feed the family.
Feed the family. But the one thing that always surprised me was him digging up the land and coming up with like, I guess it was an Indian burial ground that he dug up.
Oh.
So there was
That's
lots
why
of,
it's haunted.
and that's why it's haunted, and I shouldn't be holding this. But yes, so lots of relics came up from unearthing all of that. So, but yeah, everything they found, like different skull bones. They said Indian relics, flint arrows when he dug up all that land.
Yeah.
But this was a nice gift.
I wonder
from
where
Canterbury
those
Village.
artifacts are today.
Yeah, I don't want to touch any of those artifacts.
Yeah. Now we have to give credit to William Scripps, who bought up all that farmland just south of here. We might be sitting on his farmland as well. And he preserved a lot of those structures, the Hadrill building, those colorful shops that are in the back of Canterbury Village. Those used to be the residences of the people who would work the farms and stuff. And all of that got preserved, I would think, because of Scripps, and that all got saved to this day. And then when he passed away and the land got sold off, the land where the mansion stood, that got sold to guest house, which is for the clergy to in recovering, and so that part got sold off, and then the other half became the Antiques Village. The what is it, Gingelville Antiques Village or something like that.
Yep.
And so it's a miracle that all of those structures still stand today, and people can enjoy them today, and it's awesome.
It was going to be this huge Keatington area, like its own little city that they were trying to build there.
Yeah.
Yeah, with their store and
Is
their
that what
own
it was?
everything.
Keating Antique Village?
I think Keatington. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, there was it's something that from so long ago that you can't believe that it didn't end up turning into this city, but it's still how it is now. We get visitors from all these other cities visiting Lake Orion just to check out Canterbury Village.
Yeah, it's a tourist destination, and
that's-
lots to see and do there.
And that's actually our next presentation at the Orion Historical Society is going to be a video about Scripps.
Oh,
so
okay.
February 17th at the library, in the Ingram Room, 7 p.m. Is when we have our next meeting, and we're going to talk all Scripps. So if you have any Scripps information, feel free to come hang out, watch a video.
Have you been in the mansion yet?
I have not.
Have you? Have you visited
No, I've
them
never
yet?
been.
I'm the only one.
You're the only one?
I've been in there a
Tell
couple of
us.
times, and it's fascinating.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's great.
Orion Neighborhood Television is your community media outlet. Our mission is to empower community members and groups to create, communicate, and connect through television and video production. For more than 35 years, ONTV has offered video production classes to residents of all ages and provides them with the equipment and facilities to produce their own programs. Not only are residents encouraged to produce programs, but ONTV staff produces programs that promote local nonprofits and community groups like the Chamber of Commerce, the Orion Township Public Library, and the Lake Orion Lions Club, to name a few. The staff ventures out into the community to cover events like parades, festivals, concerts, and high school sports. ONTV has provided the equipment and staffing to televise township and village meetings live and has provided the video equipment that Lake Orion High School students use as they prepare for a career in broadcasting. ONTV's podcast studio and training give producers an opportunity to educate and entertain listeners. To sign up for classes or for more information, call 248-393-1060 or visit orionontv.org.
And welcome back to Where Living is a Vacation, our special Antiques LO Show edition. And scattered throughout this community are artifacts from the history of Lake Orion. I know that the North Oakland Museum in Oxford has some Lake Orion artifacts there. I think I've seen some artifacts at the DDA office. They have some there in the office. And we may see some return to the Lake Orion Lumberyard and some other locations. But we also have some unique artifacts here with us today. I am joined by Sharon Konieczny of the Historical Society and Jimmy Johnson, and they brought some stuff with them today. A lot of them are school related, which is really fascinating. So where did you come across some of the things that you're showing us today?
You know what? Some of these things just showed up. They belong. I have no idea where they came from exactly. One thing, somebody said they thought maybe when Pine Tree Elementary closed that they had, some of those things had been housed at the school there, and then, but I'm not sure. This just kind of showed up in a box in my garage, and I'm going through it, and I'm looking at, and it's like Jimmy said, it's like you're almost afraid to touch these things.
Yeah, they're pretty delicate.
Oh, they are.
What's
And
the first one you
this
have
one,
with you
this
there?
is another grade school register. Well, I think for me, this is another grade book, but what I think intrigues me about this is the name of the school, because of all the names of a possible school in Lake Orion, this one is named Shanghai. And I have no idea why it's called Shanghai School.
Very exotic.
Yeah, I know. I looked, I thought maybe I'm reading it wrong, but it's not. It says Shanghai School. I also heard that though back in late 1800s, early 1900s, it was trendy to name things after Asian names. There's a town, used to be a town out by Saugatuck named Singapore.
Yeah.
And it just makes, it must have just been a trendy thing, and for some reason they named this school Shanghai School. But this one is located, the school itself was located on the property, or was located on the property of what's now the county park. Off
Yeah, so that would be
Clarkston.
right across the street from here, right? Orion Oaks?
Yeah, if you're going down Clarkston and if you're heading west on Clarkston, this school was located kind of on the left-hand side there, and the property was donated by the Lomerson family, who had a huge farm. They probably owned most of that property. And if you've ever seen pictures of the Lomerson house, it's just this big, beautiful house where some of us are hoping to be able to do maybe an archaeological dig, find where that was. That would be really cool.
So what kind of information
But
is
what's
in here?
Well, let's see. We know from this was from 1924, and it was a Ronin Room schoolhouse. And we've got students that are, let's see, we've got ages on it. The youngest 5, all the way up to, there was a 14-year-old.
Wow.
All in one room school. I'm kind of, I don't want to. break this, but
There you go.
Fascinating.
yeah, there's a couple of Baldwins, so maybe students that were, you know, from the family that Baldwin Road is named after.
Yeah.
Yep. What's kind of fun is this one, in some cases, they wrote down cause of absence.
Yeah.
And, you know, one of them sick, a cold. One little 7-year-old girl didn't come to school because she had a soiled dress. Like, I don't know, you know, maybe she only had one good dress. And I don't know.
I don't know if my boss would let me stay home because my clothes was soiled.
That would be a no.
Yeah, mother sick, ill, has the grades in it. And they had
Wow, that's
about
fascinating.
13, 14 kids sometimes in the school. So it was kind of a
Yeah. This is like 1924. I see.
1924.
And the one thing I
Yes.
notice is, like, I'll see, you show the
Yeah, if you
viewers
can do it better.
the writing in here, how perfect the writing is. Like
Yeah.
the stenciling in there. They just don't teach cursive anymore. I know.
No,
I know
they
that.
don't.
I had to
Yeah.
take cursive in school, and this is like perfect cursive
Mm-hmm.
with their grades in there and the explanation of why they couldn't be at school because of their
That's fascinating.
soiled linens and stuff.
Speaking of one-room schoolhouses, Jimmy, you're heavily involved in what's happening over at the Howarth School that is now at Friendship Park. Talk a little bit about what's happening with the Howarth School.
Yeah, so the goal is we're working with the Orion Historical Society and the Sunrise Rotary Group. So all together, we're going to take this one-room schoolhouse that was moved from Silver Bell Road back in '08, I believe, from the Orion Historical Society, so to save the building. And the Howard School moved it to Friendship Park right next to the Port Barn. And next to the Port Barn, we want to make it a destination for field trips. So this one-room schoolhouse, we're going to bring it back to the early 1900s with the desks. We have a stove that was donated. Sorry, we didn't bring the stove today. The thing was heavy. But there's a stove that was originally in one of the schoolhouses, is going to be back in there on display. But yeah, we're working together as a community to bring it back to a destination place where kids can learn what it was like to be in a schoolhouse and learning back then. Yeah.
Now, I don't know if I'm jumping ahead here, but you have an artifact with you that says Howarth on it. Is that connected to the school?
Well, it was on the same property. There was a Howard Church,
Okay.
and there was the one-room schoolhouse. So yeah, that's one of the topics that Sharon's going to talk over about where this sign came from as well.
Do you want to talk about that, or do you want to save that?
You know what? Let me finish just where
All
the
right, go
school
ahead.
was, because it's, you know, as I said, it had been located in where the county park is, and it's obviously no longer there. And we had to do some research to find out what happened to it, because it wasn't just demolished. What they did, I think somebody said, and it was like in the 1940s, it was moved across the street, right across Clarkston Road, and for a while it was somebody's home, and now it's it was the Echo Christian Fellowship Church.
Yeah, the little
that
white
little
building.
white church there.
Yeah.
And if you look at it, and when a friend of mine and I drove around, and if you look at it, you can see where the bones of the schoolhouse are.
Yeah.
So it's kind of cool that it's still there.
That's
You
Yeah.
know, it wasn't totally destroyed. So that was kind of a.
I always wondered about that little like, white church. I'm like, was it always built as a church? But knowing it was a schoolhouse before, it's
It was
pretty
a
amazing.
school.
That's
Yep.
awesome.
I'll take this one out of the way.
Okay.
All right, what else did you bring
Next
with
thing,
you?
and this might be one of my favorite things in our whole collections. This is the guest register for the Hotel Taylor. And you may go, "What? Hotel Taylor? What is the Hotel Taylor?"
Never heard of that.
Oh, well, you will now. This actually started out in the 1881, I believe, as the Cataract House. And the Cataract House, that sounds like such an odd name for a hotel. You know, and I don't think it has anything to do with an eye disorder. I think what it has to do with, I looked up what cataract is, and in addition to being an eye disorder, it is also a name for either a waterfall or a rapids.
Huh, okay.
Yeah, and so what I'm thinking, and this is just me thinking, but I thought, you know, it would make sense. It's located right next to where the dam is downtown.
Yeah.
And maybe when they were building the hotel, they didn't want to call it a damn hotel, but maybe they thought that sounded like it kind of went along. That's the only thing I can think of, because it doesn't make a lot of sense otherwise.
But Pink Creek probably inspired the name. Right?
Yeah, very well. Yep. So this was actually started out life as the Cataract House, and then it went to, it had a number of names. I have to make sure I have them in order.
I see the Swift House
Swift
in
House
1884.
was the next one, and if I've got my little ad here, can you see that? I don't know if I can see that.
There's a Swift House ad.
Swift House ad. And that was in, let's see, it turned into Swift House 1884. And this one was, it says, the new and excellently furnished hotel of brick, 3 stories in height and a large extent. It overlooks a beautiful lake, and its rooms are neat, spacious, and cool. It is located within 10 rods, which is, a rod is 16 and a half feet.
Huh.
Yeah, I had to look that up. So this is within 10 rods or 165 feet of Detroit and Bay City Railroad Depot.
Okay.
And has excellent stabling for horses.
And I wonder if that depot was where the auto zone is now. I think I heard that there might have been a depot in that area
That's where it
across
was.
from Greens
that's where it
Park
was.
there. Yeah.
That's where that was. Yep.
Yeah.
And they measured it in rods.
In rods, yeah.
Yeah.
I suppose if you were reading that, you'd know what a rod was.
With the railroads, super popular then.
Yep. And then after that, it went to 1901. It turned into the Hotel Taylor, which is what we have. And this is wonderful. This is the guest registry. And from, yep. And I mean, they got the cool ads.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm picturing like calligraphy pen, like they got the
Dipping
ink
it in
well
the
and
ink well,
dipping
yeah.
and doing that. You can see the curves in
Is
there.
that another Hadro right there? It looks like a
I
Hadro
did.
stick
You know
Look
what?
there.
It could be. It could very well be.
Hadro family got around.
Yes.
And they stayed at a fine hotel when they came to town, too.
Yeah.
Yep. And it's got all the nifty
Someone
ads.
just signed his name as Butch.
Yep.
Butch is here.
Maybe they knew who he
They
was.
knew him, yeah. It was Butch.
That's awesome.
Yeah. This is it's just wonderful.
Yeah, and they got the ads on the top and bottom too. Barrage and Barrage. They
Barrage,
had buildings
right.
they owned in downtown. So it also served as advertisements.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. And
So
then-
when you hear Hotel Taylor, you might not recognize it right away, but you definitely are familiar with the building because it's still
It's
standing today in
definitely
downtown
there.
Lake Orion.
Yep.
Because after that, 1908, it turned into the Park Hotel.
Yeah.
And I think when you look at a lot of the old pictures of Lake Orion downtown, you
Yeah.
see
The
where it
Park
says
Hotel.
Park Hotel. And I really think that what you see there is the back half of the hotel.
Yeah.
Because if you go around from the other side, it's got a nice entrance.
Yeah.
So my guess is people got off of the train and just went right across and right in that way.
Yeah.
Right.
So yeah, it seems odd that the side of the building that faces Broadway Street more than likely was the rear of the building because people approach from the railroad. So
That makes sense. And I've never seen a picture of the front, what we think is the entrance.
Yeah, yeah.
And if anybody has a picture of that somewhere,
Yeah.
I would love to see what that looked like because all the pictures are always taken kind of from the
Yeah,
back.
on Broadway.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
So yeah, it underwent numerous name changes.
Yeah.
It says here in the 1930s, it was the
1930s,
Orion
Orion
Hotel. which
Hotel.
Makes sense.
In the 1940s, it was the Vera D, which sounds like, from what I heard, that had kind of a reputation. And then for the 50s, it was in the Verwood Hotel, and it was also had the Verwood Hotel and Bar. And I heard some gossip about that.
Yeah.
Before it was bought out and turned into the Verwood Apartments, yeah. I remember somebody telling me that I think it was the 3rd floor they said was reserved for like ladies of the evening.
Interesting.
Yeah. Somebody told me that, and I might have read that somewhere, but I couldn't find it. I was hoping I'd have a newspaper clipping or something. Yeah, and apparently, from what I heard, there were at one point the bar was in danger of losing its liquor license because of the fights. It sounded like kind of a fun sort of, kind of a place back then, but when it was finally sold, it sounded like people were not too broken up about it
Right.
being sold. I did
We're
find
ready to
another.
move on with it.
And for the Verwood bar, they did have bowling teams though. I think, okay, well, at least there was some
Other activities
yeah, other
besides fighting.
activities going on there. Yep.
And it looks like it survived several fires.
It did, yeah. Yeah, there was, in I think 1902, there was a fire that destroyed most of the downtown.
Yeah.
But this place, because it was masonry, it was not wood like everything else.
Yeah.
It was one of the few things that actually survived on that end of town.
Yeah, and the same thing happened in 2000, what was it, 6, I think it was? There was that massive fire that originated at Sagebrush
Right.
Cantina.
Yes.
Right.
And a lot of those businesses were destroyed, but the fire ended at the Verwood and Ed's Broadway Gifts, and everything in between had gotten destroyed. So it's amazing that it survived several major fires and still looks relatively unchanged.
Yes.
When you see those historic photos, you know exactly what
Yeah,
it
the
is.
structure, the
Yes.
windows, everything
Yeah.
is still in
Yeah.
the same spot.
I've
Yeah.
never stepped foot inside. Have you guys ever been inside
I've
the
never
hotel?
been inside.
Never
I
been
know
inside.
people who've lived inside the hotel, but I've
Yeah.
never stepped foot. I would love to get a tour of the place. I want to go to the bar. I want to go to the Verwood
Yeah.
bar.
Yeah, the bar's gone, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know if an apartment building would have a bar that
No.
people can sit in. So.
Only one of the nicer ones.
So it became the apartments in 1983. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, but this is just such a neat book. What are the
is.
chances of somebody having held on to it? And,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
think they would just have thrown it away and they didn't need it.
And
but,
for its age, it's in really good condition. And the advertisements, I love old advertising. So yeah, seeing all those company names in here is really cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
All right.
Okay, I think next thing I've got was our sign that
All
we were
right. I've
talking
been waiting
about.
to get to that.
We have the
side.
huge sign here.
Okay.
So that came
And-
from the church that you said shared the property.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and actually what's really cool is not only do we have the sign, but this is, I don't know if you can see that somehow, this is a picture of the church and there is the sign on it right up at the top. You see, and I know where we got
so
this
it-
from.
Yeah, it hung it like a diamond shape.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know exactly where we got that from because I was there when we got it. Back around 2019, I think, I was there with our vice chair at the time, and we were going through their files looking for pictures. They said, come on over, see if there's anything that we would be interested in having copies of. So we were going through there and looking through everything, and the pastor came in and carrying this,
Wow.
and he says, I don't know if you guys would be interested in this, but it's just been sitting in our garage all these years, and we don't know what to do with it.
Wow.
And it was like, do we want that? Yes.
Yeah, that's
like
fascinating.
1898, and as I said, there's this nice picture. There it is, right
Yeah,
there. So
yeah.
I think this is a real treasure. This is, and they could have thrown that away over the years, and they
Sure.
didn't. They hung on to it, and we were absolutely delighted to take that back.
Yeah, and it's so cool that you have that photo showing where it originally hung.
yeah.
That's
Something
awesome.
definitely we'll be incorporating into the Hallworth School.
Yeah.
When it's completed, somehow we had to, with the photo, to connect where it was.
Yeah, because it started out, the Howarth Church apparently started in 1859, and that's what's now our schoolhouse. And when that was moved, that was moved, they stopped using it and they built this church.
Yeah.
Yep. And that was in 1898, and I think they stayed there, according to their little pamphlet here, till 1985.
Oh, wow.
And that's when they built the church that's there now.
Okay.
And then when did the Howard School? I know that the community moved. That must have been a sight to see. Was that in the 2000s, mid 2000s?
Yeah, 2008 or 2009. It's around that time period.
Wow.
And our current DDA person there, Matt Gibb, he was telling us about how that whole procedure went, how they moved it, how they had to move around. They were on Joslin, had to make the
yeah.
corner on the Clarkson Road and
Yeah.
clip the fences around the corner. And how
I'm
to
sure
get
power
over.
lines were a concern.
Oh,
and
yes, yeah, it was a huge excavation. They did a lot of money raising for it through the schools and dressing up, having heritage days, and they did an archaeological dig there at the original site too, and found a lot of like pieces of glass and
Yeah.
pieces of like pencil, like lead and stuff like that.
So it's great that
Yeah.
that building has been preserved and future generations are going to be able to enjoy it thanks to your efforts. And I can't wait to see it open to the public and kind of resembling what it looked like in its heyday. That's really exciting.
Yeah, and keep following the Orion Historical Society because we're going to have different campaigns to raise money, like personalized bricks you can do for a walkway if you want to do in the front. So keep following us for more information, how to get involved.
Yeah. Something we always talk about is the need for a museum. We would love to have a Lake Orion museum someday. Like I said, there are artifacts scattered throughout the community, and the museum, the North Oakland Museum in Oxford, has some artifacts there. I first discovered that particular museum when they started the Lone Ranger Days in Oxford, which was a lot of fun, and they were celebrating that connection to Brace Beamer, who was the Lone Ranger on radio. So there's some artifacts there, but you know, like you said, it would be expensive to pay the rent on space, say in downtown Lake Orion, so that
Yes.
space would almost have to be donated. So if anyone
Yes.
owns space in downtown Lake Orion and would like to donate that to open up a Lake Orion museum, that would be absolutely fantastic.
Oh, to have one hub for all of the antiques, that would
just
be great.
One-stop
yes.
shopping, yeah.
Yep.
So the Historical Society, is there a website? Is there, can we give out more information?
Yep, the OrionHistoricalSociety.com.
Okay.
So on there's a click to donate button. Also, you'll find links to different sites where you can research your genealogy, for example, or look up Lake Orion historical imagery. But also for our upcoming events. So like February 17th is our next event we're having at the library where we meet.
That's great.
And we're going to be talking about the Scripps Mansion. But that is the one stop to check and see what is happening with the Historical Society and how to get involved.
Awesome.
And we also have a Facebook page.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of people follow
Yes.
us on the Facebook page, you know, so I always try to put things up when we've got a meeting or an activity or sometimes just a fun thing that's going on in another community, you know, historical that, so,
Yeah.
you know, all of us history geeks kind
Yeah,
of place to look
I'm
for
one.
things.
Yeah. We're just about out of time. I saw you have one little tiny artifact. You want to
Okay.
mention that real quick? What is that?
Yeah, I do. This is apparently the top of a milk bottle. And this was of Lakefield Farms, which if you go down, you're going west on Clarkston Road, and on the left-hand side there's a big barn. And I know for a while it was Picasso's Grapevine, I think. It was like an art center. That barn, that whole farm area was owned by Oscar Weber. And he's one of the manager or the president of Hudson's.
Hudson's in
Oh,
Detroit.
Yeah,
Yep.
and he had a gentleman's farm there, and they raised, they had cows, they had a dairy, obviously.
Yeah.
they had
Prize-winning
pigs.
ones too.
Yeah, sounds like they were quite a thing. And yeah, when we were there touring the place quite a few years ago now, some of these were laying around, and this says from Lakefield Farms. And now Jimmy and I were trying, I think that it's like the top for a milk bottle.
Yeah.
And I'm old enough to remember when you had like glass milk bottles, and they
the
had
cap
that.
on top.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Jimmy was saying, I know sometimes there are.
They had
like
wooden tokens back then too.
Right, right.
Where you'd redeem for things.
Yeah.
But then I see the cutout as a lid too. I'm
Yeah,
like,
that's
oh,
that's
do
kind of
that
what I
too.
think that is.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so
Like
we
I said,
have
we're
a couple
just
of those.
about out of time,
Okay.
but Jimmy, you brought like a stereoscopic.
Oh yes.
We might call it a Viewmaster today.
Yes.
Just show the audience
So-
what we got real quick with the stereoscopic photos.
This is virtual reality back in the early 1900s, late 1800s. So you would look through here, and you would look at the picture here, and so what they would do is there's two pictures, they're just slightly off-centered.
Yeah.
And then what happens is when you look in here, it gives that three-dimensional effect. But for people that couldn't travel the world, they had all these pictures of like the Colosseum, the Leaning Tower of Pisa, the many places around the world you that you couldn't travel to, but you can through this.
Is there a Lake Orion connection for that?
So this was donated by somebody within our Orion Historical Society, Margie.
Awesome.
And we
And
couldn't
do
find any Lake
actually
Orion
have,
ones.
we do have some of these, not in this pile, but we do have some that were Lake Orion.
Oh, that's
Oh,
fantastic.
that's awesome! I
Yeah.
didn't know that.
That's great.
So, yeah, so I brought the ones that were like the historic, Leaning Tower, and then the
Origins
Colosseum.
of the Viewmaster.
Yes, yes.
All right. Well, thanks for coming down today and sharing a little bit of Lake Orion history with us. We've got to keep this conversation going another time.
Yes.